Hello everybody, what's up? And today we're going to revisit a blaster that did pretty good speed, but there was always a problem with it. It just didn't have enough. Well, today we're going to revisit a very critical blaster that I think needs improvement. And when it does get improved, it's going to be pretty bitchin'. I'm talking, of course, about the Scaramanga II. This extraordinary flashy blaster, that is gold tape, 3 layers of fiberglass, and a very used shell on it, is known as the Valkyrie bird of prey. As you can see, it's got the clear tube, it's got the 16 kilogram spring, it's got 200 foot ranges. It's a very powerful blaster. And it came with a lot of trial and error and a lot of working with the single plunger tubes and all that. Today I got my spare parts bag out for all my bird of preys. As you know, I usually have a couple of bird of preys that are ready to go in parts. One thing that the bird of prey has is that the plunger rod is a lot longer than that of a pink crush. There's a few reasons why a star shot's it. That's what you want to use a bird of prey for. And it's not just the wings either. Number one, it's easier just to cut. Everything just fits right in there. Number two, your back plate is the same back plate all the way up here and is arched all the way back. And number three, your plunger rod is longer and it has a little hole on the center of it. That perfectly fits a number 10 screw. So this means that I can move up the whole, I can take this off, move up the whole plunger to about here, put in my plunger, let's see, about there. Put in the plunger rod, shave this little catch right here, and do all the doodad adjustments on there, and I've got a rocket. So, a couple years ago, 2015, I tried to make what was known as the Scaramanga II. Scaramanga 1 was the Frankenstein blaster that had a Magnus plunger tube in it. It was a Fire Strike with a Night Fender plunger rod and a Magnus plunger tube and a triad plunger head with the front edge of it cut. I was able to pull velocities into the 180, 190s. This ended up making the blaster known as the Type M bird of prey, which later on became Type L bird of prey. So that progression should tell you Scaramanga 1 was a pretty good blaster. But then we had the 2, and 2 had problems. Okay, here's one of the original shells for 2. It was the very beginning of using fiberglass, and on this one I tried to use the inside before putting it on the outside like this. That was one thing. The other thing is, here's the tube. This was a Apollo plunger tube. It held up, but the plunger head and plunger rod did not, because on a star shot, that catch right here is a straight cliff up. This one, it's slanted. If you cut a little off there, make it deep there, and then run a screw through it, this is nearly indestructible, okay? And by shaving a little off there and working on the spring action, you can make a pretty good spring action for it and make it really, really rock. Well, I got this in the mail today. Came back from Pittsburgh, California, helping a friend move. Yeah, I really like this. This is the Divergent series of the Rebel Pink Crush, of course. And I like it. I especially like the fact that this rail is black, because when this goes gold, oh, that's going to look so cool. But there are a couple problems. Number one, look at this right here. Do you notice that this can only go so far? Okay? So your plunger rod can only go so far before you max out your limit on your draw. If I do something like that, then I've now brought up my maximum travel by about half an inch. This means that once my rod is way up here, my cutoff can be way up there, and instead of ending it, here, let me find a better way of doing this. Instead of ending it right here, I can probably end it right here. So if you look at it real carefully, and then you put in mind then I'm going to add another 1/2 inch. My plunger tube can end right there. This gives me a whole nother about 1/2 inch of room for my whole plunger assembly. That's good because that gives me full draw. Okay. One of the problems that the Pink Crush has is that you're limited by draw. The other thing is that the Pink Crush has a rounded square plunger rod, is where these are more squared. The ones on the Star Shot are more squared, and it's to keep them from moving one to the other. But honestly, all you really have to do is either file these sharp or file those around. That's no big deal. But one thing I did do right was the front coupler. Maybe I should have stuck with long shot and just made it 9/16 all the way to here, and then forgot about this whole thing. Because what this ended up doing was it ended up making something like that. Okay? And I did have a lot of fit issues to it. Look at that huge tube in there. Look at that huge tube. And the idea was to make up for the barrel volume by the lack of draw by putting a 1/2 tube in there instead of a 1 3/8. Well, I'm just gonna go long shot tube and longer on this one, I'm thinking. And I'm thinking I'm gonna make this, because this will be screwed in, I'm gonna be able to put my favorite spring in there, of course, a 16 kilogram Nerf turf. And we could see some serious shit here. Same guy that I bought from two. The same guy I bought from two. He also sells on eBay. It's really cool. He originally messaged me about this Star Shot, which is good because you see, I have these are really expensive now. They look at the huge difference between a stock Star Shot and a Bird of Prey. Look at that. There's a lot of differences, but a lot of, as you can tell, similarities. Okay? I mean, it's really hard to imagine this now without that huge plunger tube in there. It's so hard to imagine. And because of this, going all the way down this, it adds to that reinforcement. So when the tube's in the front, the tube it has a place to go. It doesn't ever try to dance around the frame or anything. It takes an incredible amount of torture. Amount of power. Look at that. Yeah. So there's one fully assembled right there. The weak spot you always have is this lettering right up here, because they make this thin. You have to reinforce this, because on this side, as you can tell, you're going to probably cut into it. So you're going to end up with really thin part of plastic. This is the part that usually breaks. And as you can also tell, there's no bulge up here holding in the tube. Here there's a bulge holding a tube. Oh yes, that is on purpose. You could make this so that there is no bulge on here and just have it like so, but it's actually more accurate if you do, because it actually has pressure holding the tube. It's holding it down here, it's holding it back here, it's holding it over here. Yeah, so in everywhere the tube is held in, and there's really no other place to hold in the tube. So you kind of have to work with this stuff a bit. But yep, Scaramanga II, which this one will be called, I think, will be called Scaramanga III. And Scaramanga III is going to be, it's going to have a lot where the two just didn't have it. You know, I was limited by the draw. I was limited by the plunger rod. I was limited by all these things that when I got into it, I realized that out of the box, a Pink Crush just doesn't do it. For your 19K pistols, let's say your fast pistols, let's say something that's doing like 180, 170, 200 feet per second, something you just want handy in a holster, a Pink Crush is great. So this is why I say this is still one of the best. But if you want something that really rockets, you do need a Star Shot. But we're going to see that if we put some of what we've learned from the Bird of Prey and we put it into a Pink Crush, will it really help? We're going to find out in the next couple weeks or so. At any rate, this is Chris Cartea. Don't you go changing.